Hi there. Thank you so much for coming early. I really appreciate it. I know that you just kind of stepped into this campaign, so I wanted to make sure to give you some extra time to set up your character. And this is your first D&D campaign, right? Okay. So, I'd be happy to help you set up your character and walk you through the different types of options you have. If that sounds good to you. Okay. So, I have my computer here, so you can see the character sheet, and it's kind of filled out right now, so I'll just delete most of the stuff as we go through. And we'll fill it out with your own character's information, okay? I also have a set of dice for you to use. Everyone else in the campaign has their own set of dice, so I thought it might be nice if I gave you a set. And if you like it, these are yours to keep. So yeah, these are just red and black dice with gold numbers on them, so here you go. Yeah, you can just put them with your stuff. The other thing that I have that will help us out today is the player's handbook. So I don't have all of the classes and things memorized, but this will be able to help us with the rest. So now looking at the character sheet, do you have any idea what you might want your character's name to be? Not yet. Okay. We'll come up with that a little bit later then. Let's see then. Oh, I know your name, so we'll put that in first. Oops. Okay. And did you have any idea of what you wanted to do for like things like race or class or even character alignment? Character alignment is like a neutral good, neutral evil, chaotic evil, lawful good, that type of thing. Okay, you're not sure. Alright, we'll go through that then. I'm just gonna pull out the player handbook and read to you some of the options that you have for race, I think, is first. Okay. Oops. So, for races, you can choose from a couple different things. Actually, you can choose from a whole lot of different things. So, are you familiar with things like Lord of the Rings, Skyrim, anything like that, really? Okay, so you know things like dwarves and elves. Okay, so you could be like a dwarf if that's interesting to you, and that's pretty straightforward. There's a couple different types of dwarves. Like you could be a hill dwarf, you could be a mountain dwarf, you could be an elf, a wood elf, high elf. Dark elves are called drow, but they still exist. So if you wanted to do something like that, I think there's also things like sun elves. Let's see. Next is a halfling, which is, you said you're familiar with Lord of the Rings. So a halfling is just like Frodo and those people of the Shire. So kind of shorter. I can read some of it too. Halflings, let's see. They're small and practical, kind and curious. Some of their traits include they have an ability score increase for your dexterity, so they can move around pretty well because they're so small, I bet. Age, let's see, alignment. most halflings are lawful good. As a rule, they are good-hearted and kind. They hate to see others in pain and have no tolerance for oppression. They are also very orderly and traditional, leaning heavily on the support of their community for the comfort of their old ways. So, it also says their size is about 3 feet tall. So, if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you, we could do that. There's, of course, you can just be a human if you want to. There's Dragonborn, which is not the same type of thing as it is in Skyrim. Dragonborn are more like Argonians in Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls. So they're like lizard people. They're like people-sized, roughly. I think they might be a little bit bigger. Size. Taller and heavier than humans. But they do stand upright like humans. They just are like dragon people here. I'll show you the picture of them. See? So you can kind of get an idea. Let's see. Oh, I skipped a page. You can also be a gnome, which is slightly different from a halfling. They are, I think, around the same size, but let's see. Size. Yeah, gnomes are between 3 and 4 feet tall and around the same weight as well, so gnomes are a little bit different though. Let's see. They can be very smart. Most gnomes are most often good. Those who tend towards law are sages, engineers, researchers, scholars, investigators, or inventors. Those who tend towards chaos are minstrels, tricksters, wanderers, and fanciful jewelers. Gnomes are generally good-hearted, and even the tricksters among them are more playful than vicious. So, I like more good and small people, but these are typically more intelligent rather than dexterous, if that makes sense. Then you could be a half-elf if you wanted to be part human, part elf. You could be a half-orc. You could be a regular orc too. I don't know if I skipped a page, but you could just be orc. And then tieflings are fun. They're like kind of like demon people, sort of. It's kind of hard to explain, but they have tails and horns and things. Let's see. I'd like to try to find their traits. Alignment. Tieflings might not have an innate tendency towards evil, but many of them end up there. Evil or not, an independent nature inclines many tieflings toward a chaotic alignment. Tieflings are, I don't know as much about tieflings, but they are people who... Tieflings are derived from human bloodlines, and in the broadest possible sense, they still look human. However, their infernal heritage has left a clear imprint upon their appearance. So, tieflings are people who their ancestors kind of struck a deal with demons and devils to gain some kind of power or something. And this is kind of the outcome, so I'll show you what the tieflings look like so you can see like the tail and things. So pretty human-esque, but with horns and some tail, but also, let's see, I think that they're more, they have an affinity for like darker types of magic, I believe. So that's where this ends, but there's also, you could be something called a tabaxi, and that's like a cat person, a little bit like a Khajiit, if you, for Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls. And then there's also, I can't remember the name of them because it's not in the book, but there's also, you could be a bird person. I wish I could remember the name. But you could be a humanoid, but you can fly, turn into a bird. I don't know as much about them, but if you like birds, we could do some research on them. You're okay? Okay. And then, also, someone in the campaign is actually playing a kobold as well, which is like a little kind of monkey, rat, dog creature. intelligent enough. So you could play something like that too if you wanted. And if I'm giving you too many options. Okay. Okay. Did you have an idea of what kind of race that you wanted based off of those? Okay, yeah, for sure. That's definitely doable. And based off of some of the stuff that I said about like the different alignments, was there anything specific that stood out to you so far? Oh yeah, so for sure. So it's kind of like a grid, and I don't know if you've seen them like online, but it's kind of like a grid, and it's like there's lawful good, neutral good, and chaotic good. And then there's the middle line is lawful neutral, true neutral, and chaotic neutral. And then there's lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. So let me see. Trying to come up with something that most people are familiar with. Harry Potter. Do you know of Harry Potter? I mean, have you read it? Do you know like the characters? Okay, so let's think. So like lawful good would be like Hermione. She doesn't, in the earlier parts, she doesn't really want to break the rules or anything like that. She's good, but also very rule following, very lawful. Chaotic good might be someone like Harry, who constantly breaks the rules, but in order to do something good. Let's see. Neutral good might be like Ron, maybe. He's not really overly rule following, and he's not overly chaotic either, so he's just kind of good. Let's see. So a lawful evil would be like Dolores Umbridge. Like she's very evil for control and for order, if that makes sense. So also very like rule oriented, like, you know, but just not a good person, and she doesn't do things the right way in order to get what she wants. Like if she wants order, she like goes about it in like the evil ways. Neutral evil, I would actually argue, would be closer to Voldemort, who's just like an evil dude, and he's not lawful, but honestly he's not very chaotic either. It's very like just a straightforward evil with him. Chaotic evil would be like Bellatrix. Yeah, she's about as chaotic as you can get, I think. So yeah. So I hope that helps. Do you have an idea? I don't know if you're starting to come up with ideas for like your backstory, or if you'd rather roll for that, but oh, you do have an idea. Okay, yeah, I'll put that in then. Okay, and now we'll do your class, okay? There's a lot of different classes you could do, and there are subclasses and things, but I will just give you the basics so I don't overwhelm you or anything. So you could be a barbarian, which is basically a fighter type character, but you are mostly using kind of heavier weapons. Let's see. You could do things like you could enter like a berserk mode. So it gives me like mini stories at the beginning of each of these, but I don't want that. I just want a description. They are more of your primal type fighters, though. But think like kind of Vikings or like Conan the Barbarian. Let's see what else. Oh, you could be a bard, and those are people I haven't played one, and I don't think I've played with one either. But basically they use music and magic to kind of fight, do different things. Okay, and then you could do a cleric. And a cleric is a mix of like fighting, melee fighting, and spellcasting, and a lot of healing as well. So if you feel like you want to be someone who heals the party, that's definitely a good choice. Let's see. Okay, you could be a druid. Druids have a lot of affinity for animals and nature type magic, so if that's something that you would be interested in, you could do that. You could be a fighter, which is like a knight type character, like a little bit more of a civilized barbarian. There's different types of fighting styles you could do, but basically if you're a fighter, you're not using much magic at all. So you could do that if you're interested. And then after that is a monk. So monks typically use a little bit more magic, but they also have a lot of martial type fighting in a melee sense. You could be a paladin. A paladin also does a lot of fighting. They're heavily armored, and also they do a lot of healing and holy magic attacks as well. So if they're a little bit, they're very similar to clerics, but they're a little bit more. I think they're armored heavier, and I think that they're also more aligned to holy magic specifically. You could be a ranger, which is just what it sounds like. You could be a hunter type ranger or a beastmaster, and have kind of friendships with different beasts that you could use as also attack partners. You could be a rogue. They're very good at stealthing, fighting with like daggers and things. It depends really how you want to play them to see what kind of weapons you want, but they're really cool. They're good at like stealthing and sleight of hand and that type of thing. Let's see, you can also be a sorcerer. Sorcerer, let's see, is what it sounds like. A lot of spell casting. The only thing that I'm not sure about a sorcerer is that there's also a wizard. You could play a wizard as well. And I'm not 100% sure what the difference is between them. It says, I guess, sorcerers use raw magic and have unexplained powers, whereas I think wizards are more studied. Let's see. I guess they use wild magic. Warlocks, you could play one of those. They're more dark magic and demon magic and that type of thing. Really good for if you did want to play a tiefling at any point. Let's see. Wizards, scholars of the arcane, the lore of knowledge. So yeah, wizards are definitely more studied. There's different types of schools that you could do as wizards too. So there's the school of conjuration, the school of divination, school of enchantment, school of necromancy, school of illusion. There's really like a lot that you could do with wizards, but that's pretty much the classes that are in the books. So if there was anyone that specifically stood out to you. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I guess I had the book resting on the keyboard. That's okay. Class. Okay. And then I had mentioned a couple subclasses. For that one, did you have anything specific, or just like you don't have to? It can be pretty bland right now, and we can get more in depth as we go. Okay. And did you come up with a character And how is the last name spelled? With a... Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I got it. Alright, that looks good. Let me see. Well, I could do all of that on my end. If you wouldn't mind just using the typical... would you mind using the typical build for your attributions, so like strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma? I can just do a quick Google search for like your classes, typical numbers for those, and fill that out before the campaign starts. Okay, well then let's talk about your background, okay? So, oh, actually, we'll do that. Do you know what age your character is gonna be? Okay. And what color are their eyes? Ooh, that's cool. That's very cool. Okay. And how about their height? Okay. And their skin tone? Okay. Yeah, that's perfect for that race. And how about their weight? Okay. And what about their hair color? Yeah, you could definitely do that. Okay. That is a really cool looking character, I think. Okay, perfect. So let's do it. We did your alignment languages. You can speak Common, which is basically English or whatever language your campaign is being played in. So just something that everyone understands. With this, you can also pick one other language that's a standard language. So if you want to also be able to speak Dwarvish, Elvish, Giant, Gnomish, Goblin, Halfling, or Orc. Okay, that's a good choice. You'll see some stuff with that, I think. And then you get one based off of your... Okay, yeah. It's, you'll see it. It's, because of some of the choices that you made for your race and class, you get a couple extras just, off the bat. Okay, so, let's see. Your background could be an alkalite, so you've spent your life in service of a temple to a specific god or pantheon of gods. You act as an intermediary between the realm of the holy and the mortal world, performing sacred rites and offering sacrifices in order to conduct worships into the presence of the divine. You are not necessarily a cleric. Performing sacred rites is not the same thing as channeling divine power. So you could be that. If that sounds good to you, we could talk about some other parts of that. Let's see. You could be a charlatan. You have always had a way with people. You know what makes them tick, and you can tease out their heart's desires after a few minutes of conversation. And with a few leading questions, you can read them like they were a children's book. It's a useful talent and one you're perfectly willing to use to your advantage. So you're kind of a trickster type, and this is for your background, by the way. Criminal. You are a criminal. And you can write your own backstories to go with any of these, but this is just the type of person that you could be. You could be an entertainer, a folk hero, so you come from a humble social rank, but you're destined for so much more. Already the people of your home village regard you as their champion, and your destiny calls you to stand against the tyrants and monsters that threaten the common folk everywhere. So that type of background. A guild artisan. It could be stuff like an alchemist, an armorer, a calligrapher, a brewer, you know, stuff like that. A tinkerer, a weaver, a woodcarver. It's all up to you. You could be a hermit, a noble. You could be an outlander, so someone who grew up in the wilds, far from civilization and the comforts of town and technology. You've witnessed the migration of herds larger than forests, survive weathers most extreme than any city dweller could comprehend, and enjoyed the solitude of being the only thinking creature for miles in any direction. So perfect for a barbarian type class. You could be a sage, so you've spent years learning different types of lore, and you could flesh that out a little bit in your backstory. You could be a sailor, a soldier, an urchin, and that's it. So, did any sound particularly interesting to you? Okay. Alright, sounds good. Now, it looks like the campaign, the others are set to be here soon. Would you mind if we talked about do you have an idea for what you want to do for your backstory? Oh, you do. You've got lots of ideas. Perfect. So in that case, I am going to have you fill out the rest of this. And then we could do the rest of the stuff either after the campaign or when everyone else gets here and we're all talking about our characters, if that's okay. There's not much more, just like the specifics of like your backstory and like your ideals, your bonds, your flaws, and then your weapons. We'll talk about what weapons everyone starts with when they get here. I went over your languages. We'll go over your starting gold and starting equipment. Also, when everyone gets here, as well as your organizations that you're allied with, and any spells or cantrips that you might use. Does that sound like a plan? Cool. Well, I hope that this was super helpful. I will fill out your attributions and I'll go through your skills as well, and then we'll talk about which ones you have proficiencies for later. I'll fill out your armor class, your initiative, your speed, which actually is just going to be 30 with your class, 30 feet per turn for movement combat, and then we'll talk about hit points, and then I think we're good. But a lot of the ones that I just kind of said I can fill out really quick, just looking at like what your attributions will be. So, alright, well, why don't you just relax and I'll finish filling this out, and then the campaign will start for today.